In the name of Almighty God, the most compassionate and the most merciful, I welcome you all to your own channel. By the way, today we are talking about electron affinity. Inshallah, I will proceed electron affinity in 2 lectures. I will complete this issue. It's a basic issue in chemistry, and we will complete inshallah in 2 lectures. By the way, what is electron affinity? In this lecture, you will find inshallah the definition of the electron affinity and successive electron affinity. What are the signs for the successive electron affinity, and what's the difference between electron affinity with the electron gain enthalpy. And for the next lecture, inshallah, we will talk about the factors of the electron affinity and variation in periodic table with best examples. By the way, whenever you're talking about electron affinity, affinity means love. What does it mean? It means every neutral isolated atom in gaseous state, they love to accept an electron. What does it mean? It is nucleus, and these are the shells. Now this is an electron. Whenever you are putting this electron close to the atom, instead this atom accept this electron and release an amount of energy. This energy is called electron affinity. And it means if this is a system, the system is releasing energy, so it is an exothermic process. Definition is amount of energy when an electron is added to a neutral isolated gaseous atom. Hence, some energy released. The amount of energy which is released from the system, it's called electron affinity. We have one thing more in markets or in some books, that is electron gain enthalpy. What this one is, the environment which accept this energy, it is called electron gain enthalpy. The system which is releasing an amount of energy, that's called electron affinity. It means electron affinity, if we find with the electron affinity, what is the relation between electron gain enthalpy with the electron affinity? Enthalpy is generally used by the symbol delta H, and if this one is electron gain enthalpy, so delta H Eg, it is minus of electron affinity. It means in amount they are same, but whenever you are talking about the signs are different. Then delta H Eg, it is minus electron of affinity. If this one is positive, delta H or electron gain enthalpy is negative. Generally, electron affinity is positive, but in noble gases it tends to 0. So if electron affinity is positive generally, then electron gain enthalpy is negative. Am I right? Electron gain enthalpy is negative, but it's generally positive, and we are talking about electron affinity first. If we are talking about successive electron affinity, then the signs are different. Whenever you are talking about the unit electron affinity, we use معمولا generally we use electron volt per atom or kilojoule per mole. Generally we use the units for the electron affinity, electron volt per atom or kilojoule per mole, and it is vice versa of the word electron affinity. I mean the amounts or the values are same, but the signs are different. And electron affinity, it's what? Exothermic process. Why? Because energy is released from the system to the environment. I think you have got. By the way, take this note. If I write an example, we can say that we have an atom by the name of X. We are giving one electron. This X is X minus 1, and some energy is released. This energy is called electron affinity. If this one is, we can say, for example, where should I write? X plus 1 electron. It's X minus plus, for example, 5 kilojoule. So what's electron affinity? Electron affinity is plus 5 kilojoule. What's electron gain enthalpy? Electron gain enthalpy is minus 5 kilojoule per mole. I think you have got. Finished? Should I erase the board? Yes. Okay. Write another title. Successive electron affinity. Successive electron affinity. Okay. Successive electron affinity. What does it mean? It means if we have an atom by name of X, we are giving one electron, it becomes X minus, and some energy is released. That's called electron affinity first. If we have this X minus plus 1 electron more, then it is X2 negative and electron affinity second. Now note that generally electron affinity first is positive because some energy is released from the system, but always electron affinity second, third and more, they are negative. It means if we have an atom, this is the nucleus positive, now an electron is getting close to the atom. The atom released some energy. This energy which is released, it is called electron affinity first. Now we have X negative. It means this atom already has one electron more in its shell. Now you are getting close, one electron more to this atom. So from the Coulomb law, we have this one this one, it's an ion, Q1, and this is Q2. Now Q1 and Q2, they are like, same charge or different? They are like charge. It means same charge. The same charge, they are absorb each other, or they repel each other. I think they repel. It means that you are getting one electron and also you are giving some energy, both. It means to the system we have to give electron also, since it has already one electron more in its shell, so we have to give more energy also to this atom. It means you are giving energy, you are giving also electron. So whenever you are giving energy to a system, it's called what? Positive or negative? Negative. Then we can say that electron affinity second is what? Is negative. One thing more you have to memorize, that electron affinity first and electron affinity second, electron affinity first and electron affinity second, they are not equal. If we are talking about value, electron affinity second is more than electron affinity second is more than electron affinity first. What does it mean? It means in here, if it released 5 kilojoule, in here you are giving more than 5 kilojoule, maybe 5.1, 5.2, or maybe 6 or 7. If you are talking about electron affinity third is more than electron affinity second. Why? Because it has already 2 electrons, much more. I think you have got. Write it please. We will come inshallah on examples. Okay, now we are coming on examples. First one, if we have an atom and we are giving one electron, it's a negative plus electron affinity first. We have this A negative plus 1 electron more, it's called A2 negative, and electron affinity second. Now I'm talking about what electron affinity first and electron affinity second summation is. It's greater than 0, smaller than 0, equal to 0, and number 4, depends on atom. What do you think? I think electron affinity first plus electron affinity second, since the value for this one and this one, it's not same, and electron affinity second, it is greater than electron affinity first, and in the sign it is negative and this one is positive. It means it's a smaller positive and this one is a bigger negative. From the bigger negative with the smaller negative, the summation will be what? Smaller than 0. Why? For example, this one is plus 2 plus, and this one is more than 2, maybe minus 2.1. So if you find the summation, it is negative. Then the answer is number 2. If we are talking about delta H, e.g., I mean electron gain enthalpy, this one is greater than 0, smaller than 0, number 3 equal to 0, and number 4 depends on atom. What do you think? We have delta H, e.g., is minus of electron affinity. Now electron affinity is negative. Since it's negative, we have one negative more, so it will be positive. I mean greater than 0. Number 1. Am I right? Yes. Finished? Come to the next example. It's very simple. In the next lecture, inshallah, we will talk about variation of electron affinity in periodic table, especially in periods and groups. For example, number 2, sulfur plus 2 electron, it is S2 negative. Now, what is delta H Eg, electron gain enthalpy? The answers are greater than 0, smaller than 0, equal to 0, and number 4, none of them. What do you think? What do you think? First, we have sulfur plus 1 electron, it is S negative, and we are talking about electron affinity. We know generally on the lectures of electron affinity, not gain enthalpy. I will find electron affinity, and the vice versa for electron affinity, it would be electron gain enthalpy. And we have this S minus 1 plus 1 electron more, it is S2 minus plus electron affinity second. This is first. Now we have first equation and second equation, and I will sum both of them. We have sulfur, this one with this one, it would be cancelled. Why? Because we can put this one in the left side, and this one electron, it's 2 electron, and we have S2 negative plus electron affinity first plus electron affinity second. Now what do you think? This one is negative or positive? I think it's negative. Electron affinity generally it's positive, this one is negative, and the value is more, this one, so the summation will be negative. If electron affinity is negative, then delta H or electron gain enthalpy would be positive. I think number 1. Write it please. Have you finished? Yes. Come to number 3. It's very simple. For example, number 3, phosphorus plus 3 electron, it would be P3 negative. And what is delta H Eg, electron gain enthalpy? Number 1, greater than 0, smaller than 0, number 3, equal to 0, and number 4, none of them. What do you think? I think that we have first phosphorus plus 1 electron in gaseous state. It should be phosphorus negative plus electron affinity first. Am I right? Yes. Now we have this P negative plus 1 electron more, it would be P2 negative plus electron affinity second. And we have this P2 negative plus 1 electron more, it is P3 negative plus electron affinity third. Now you can add these 3 equations. I think that you can cancel this one with this one with this, and we have phosphorus plus 3 electron, and we have P3 negative plus electron affinity first plus electron affinity second and plus electron affinity third. Now what the summation is? The summation is these two are negatives and this is positive. It's smaller than this one. Then they I think they all of them it would be what? Negative. electron affinity would be negative. If electron affinity is negative, now what is electron gain enthalpy? Electron gain enthalpy, it would be positive. Positive. If I ask you, this one is exothermic or endothermic? I think electron affinity, since electron affinity is negative, so it is endothermic. Endothermic. The process is generally all of them. It means you are giving 3 electrons and an amount of energy to the phosphorus. It would be phosphorus 3 negative. Write it, please. By the way, I will write a question. You can solve by your own. If you solved, then please comment the answer with the link below. I mean the link which you are watching this video. Oxygen plus 2 electron, this is O2 negative. Find delta H, Eg, I mean gain enthalpy, electron affinity, and the type of the reaction. This one is exothermic or endothermic. Type of reaction. If this one is negative or endothermic or exothermic. Have you finished? By the way, it was our today lecture. For the next lecture, inshallah, we will proceed electron affinity, the trends in periodic table, and the factors which electron affinity depends on. Allah Hafiz.